For the New York State AFL-CIO, I'm Darcy Wells, and this is Union Strong.
I'm proud.
I'm proud.
I am proud.
I'm proud to be Union Strong.
To be Union Strong. To be Union Strong.
To be Union Strong.
I'm a teacher, and I'm Union Strong.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
On this episode of the Union Strong podcast, we're going to be diving into the legislative priorities for the union movement for 2025. My guest today is the legislative director for the New York State AFL-CIO, Mike Neidl. Mike, welcome to the Union Strong podcast.
Thanks for having me, Darcy.
So we've got a lot to talk about today, and I want to get into some of the details of our priorities, of course, and we want to kind of look back a little bit of, what we have accomplished already. But before we do that, just let's remind people a little bit about the complexities of what we do, and that really starts with who we represent, I think.
Yeah, we have public sector, private sector unions, building and construction trade unions, and we all meet regularly to go through what their priorities and needs are. And, as you know, we meet with our board in December to approve the legislative agenda, and leading up to that, there are multiple policy meetings, Taylor Law Task Force, the Infrastructure Task Force, the Nurse Issues Committee, and others. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of thinking and thought and legislation and preparation that goes into our legislative agenda, which gets finalized in December of each year.
Okay. And it's really an ongoing process, too. I mean, this starts for the new legislative agenda once we wrapped up last session.
Absolutely. And, President Salento, Mario, our boss, he always describes it as the beginning of the session never looks like it will at the end of the session. There's a big difference. And this year, that's probably more true than ever, given a lot of the changes that will come with the new federal administration. Mm-hmm. So we may have to zig and zag with our agenda based on what happens federally as well as any other outside circumstances.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about where we are now, what we were able to accomplish after the last session.
Yeah, last year we had a very successful year. Congratulations to our affiliates who worked on many important priorities. We were able to collectively get a nation-leading retail worker safety bill passed to address the organized thefts and crime rings that have plagued retail establishments. We were able to, with the building and construction trades, establish project labor agreements on SUNY projects, as well as establish a new electronic payroll certification program so that we can get better track wage standards and violations of employers in the construction industry and other industries for that matter. Mm-hmm. We had an important warehouse worker safety law passed. And of course, we did some great improvements in how workers' compensation addresses mental health issues, and we did some really important improvements there. For injuries that occur at work that are mental, as well as a historic, I think, first in the nation moratorium on layoffs in state government if the state decides to use artificial intelligence to assist in providing services. That was a really important bill that got done, and we look forward to using that to build further protections for workers moving forward.
And that you're talking about the Loading Act?
That's the Loading Act, that's right.
And can you just remind us a little bit more about what that will do?
Sure. Right now, state agencies can use artificial intelligence pretty much at will and without any regard legally for how it could impact the workers. As we know, artificial intelligence has the ability to replace work. And what we're saying is we're not trying to put a moratorium on using artificial intelligence. We just want to use it to be used responsibly so that we're not displacing workers, and instead it is a tool to help provide better services. So the Loading Act helps do that by ensuring there cannot be any displacement, including layoffs, but diminishment of work, diminishment of hours, pay, and other terms and conditions of employment.
Okay, and I know AI will be on our agenda again because there's much more to do with that. So we've heard already the State of the State has come out, the executive budget proposal has come out. Let's start there on what things look like for us, and then let's get into a little bit of our agenda moving forward.
Sure. The governor released her executive budget, and this is a $252 billion budget, so it's a little bit higher in spending than last year. A lot of the proposals the governor has put out center around affordability for working families to live in the state. So what does that mean? There are several tax proposals, child tax credit enhancement. There's a middle-class tax cut, and there's also a rebate from 2023 taxes to address inflation. So the state is attacking the affordability problem in a couple of different ways in this proposal by getting people back into, money back into people's pockets from the taxes they paid. Additionally, there is a lot of investment in childcare and building new facilities, as well as creating a childcare continuity of services program by creating a pool of individuals who could substitute and provide childcare. Right now, a lot of times if a childcare provider is sick or can't make it to work for other reasons, that's it for the day, and parents are stuck and can't get care. So this is intended to address that problem. There's an increase in school aid. There's an increase in Medicaid, modest increases there that hopefully will address funding needs. But we know you almost can't spend enough on healthcare and education. So we'll be working with our affected affiliates on that. And there are several other labor proposals in there which we're reviewing now that impact workers' compensation, impact child labor laws, impact other rights like the frequency of pay requirements, as well as wage theft, that we're reviewing now to see if we can support or have to work on those to make them work a little bit better. So there's a lot of things in this budget that address working families' needs, affordability issues, and we're just rolling through all of that now, and we'll be working on our priorities in addition to those moving forward.
So let's talk about some of our priorities of our legislative agenda for 2025. I mentioned AI will be on that again. What's the focus on AI now that we've got the loading app passed?
It's a great question. There's it's almost like what isn't AI impacting right now, but from our perspective, the artificial intelligence is being used more and more in labor relations. Artificial intelligence will sort through applications for employment, as well as evaluate work and performance of individuals at work, as well as make other types of decisions. Its predictive abilities is what's being used. So, one, we want to make sure there's human oversight of that so that any bias or discriminatory algorithms that are out there are weeded out, and that workers are being treated fairly and evaluated fairly, and particularly in hiring as well as evaluation of work. And then on the flip side of that is artificial intelligence is actually providing more and more services. And this is true throughout the economy. It's in the public sector, private sector, it's in construction, it's in blue collar and white collar, the professions. So more and more you're seeing artificial intelligence doing writing, performing tasks, doing other types of services. We want to make sure that as this develops, workers aren't just being replaced, and we're having huge unemployment increases and other negative impacts on the workforce. So reining that in is going to be a big priority.
Okay. And then, you mentioned this at the beginning, too, watching what happens at the federal level. And President Trump's already removing some of those guardrails at the federal level regarding AI. So that's going to have to be something we're going to have to be adjusting to on the fly. Or I know there's been discussions already on how we're going to deal with some of the federal issues.
Absolutely, and that starts right here in the budget that I was just talking about. Any federal funding cuts, and we know those are coming, that could impact education or healthcare or other policy areas that we're concerned about. The state has to be prepared to pick up that slack if necessary. So one of the things the governor did include in her budget is an extension of a tax on wealthiest New Yorkers that was done in 2020, but is expected to expire next year. So that's extended. The proposal extends that through 2032, which is a good thing. We are working with our affiliates to try to enhance that and increase that amount so that we have a more reliable and stable revenue. That's the first key to ensuring services get provided and addressing issues like child poverty and other things that we want to address.
So what about revenue policy? In addition to that, what are some of the other priorities for us?
Well, the biggest priority is to ensure that the wealthiest New Yorkers pay their fair share. So the tax extender that I just described, which goes through 2032, created new increased brackets for those who have annual incomes of over $5 million and of over $25 million. So our proposal would slightly increase those brackets and that percentage increase.
Okay. And then you mentioned child poverty, too. That's going to be a big priority for us. Talk about that a little bit.
You know, we're approaching it in a number of different ways. We always say unionization and good jobs are the best way to address child poverty. So all of the things we fight for are the best way to go after that. But some specific state policies on child poverty, one of them the governor included in the budget that has to do with free school lunch meals and the whole revenue policy of giving a little bit more back to the middle class, particularly the child tax credit, which will give families an increased exemption for the number of children they have. Those are two different ways. But health care, affordable housing, more funding into those programs are critical to helping address the whole child poverty issue.
And then unemployment benefits, that's something we had worked on last session. I know that's going to be a priority for us again. Where are we with that?
There's a lingering deficit in the unemployment trust fund that goes back to when COVID started. It is penalizing employers who have to pay more in order to pay off the interest that's required by the federal government. When you have a deficit, that's what's required. And in addition to that, it is keeping the benefits for workers static at 2019 levels. So right now, our unemployment benefit doesn't address all of the inflation and other things that have happened over the last few years. So there have been a number of different ideas floated. They're not included in the budget at this point, but we have indicated we do want to work on this issue because workers are suffering and our employers are suffering as well. It does no good to have them paying additional amounts and the benefit stays the same, and there's no benefit at all for workers when they're paying this. So that is something we're going to have to address in the coming months.
Okay. Anything else you want to point out? I mean, the legislative agenda is lengthy. I know we're not going to get into everything here, but what are some of the other things that are top of mind?
You know, the climate will continue to be an important issue, particularly as the federal government rolls back a lot of the requirements that the previous administration had put in place. So New York State is well on its way to creating policies to develop renewable energy and other forms of environmental remediation on climate change issues. So we're going to continue working on that. And as you know, whatever funding the state does for those type of projects, we fight vigorously for labor standards, project labor agreements, and prevailing rate on construction, as well as labor peace agreements and good job standards for supply chain and the ongoing operations and maintenance of renewable energy facilities. That will remain very important. That's the future of energy and environmental issues. So that takes up a lot of our time. Basic labor issues, including workers' compensation and the right to organize, those type of things, particularly if federal actions result in rollbacks of federal rights, we want to be able to step in at the state level and make sure the workers in New York State remain protected. You know, and as you go through all of these items, I would, be remiss if I didn't point out that, we have Democratic majorities in both houses. We have leadership in both houses that care very much about these issues and do a good job at balancing the labor needs and employer needs, and it's really appreciated. And of course, the governor as well, in putting out a budget that addresses a lot of these issues. We're going to have to work through some of the details of them, but generally speaking, the direction that both houses and the governor are on are the similar direction that we want to go in as a movement.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Mike. I know there's a lot of work ahead, and we appreciate your time here, and we'll make sure that we share some links with everyone so they can follow along as adjustments are made and what people can do to help get these issues across the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joining me on the podcast is our Director of Digital Strategy, Liz O'Neill. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Darcy.
And Liz also edits the podcast. So we heard a lot from Mike on our legislative agenda, and part of what you're responsible for is making sure that people have access to that. So let's talk a little bit about where people can find out some of the details and how they can get involved with supporting the agenda.
Right. So we have a page on our website, the legislation page, which has a link to our agenda and other important information as the session progresses. We'll put a link to that in the show notes.
And so, Liz, also part of what you're doing is making sure that if people want to get involved and support us, if we have activities surrounding some of these issues, how can they find out what we might have happening.
Yeah, so we put it out on social media. We also send out emails and text notifications. So if you are not already on our email list, I'll put a link to sign up there, and you can sign up for text as well. And then you'll have the latest information on what actions we have going on and how you can support the union movement in New York.
Okay, great. Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Darcy.
This has been a production of the New York State AFL-CIO. Our president is Mario Salento. Our secretary-treasurer is Terry Melvin. We're a federation of 3,000 unions representing 2.5 million union members, retirees, and their families, with one goal: to raise the standard of living and quality of life of all working people. We keep New York State unions strong by fighting for better wages, better benefits, and better working conditions. For more information on the labor movement in New York, visit nysaflcio.org. Until next time, stay union and stay strong.